Hello, peasant. We here at the social media headquarters have been getting a lot of fan mail about people loving censorship and wanting more of it. But just in case you're in a place of confusion about the helpfulness of our censorship policies, I'm here to help you think correctly.
I am proud to announce that starting today, our company is now Meta. Our mission remains the same. It's still about bringing people together.
The main problem, in my view, in connection with this COVID crisis is that civic rights are being increasingly curtailed, and it's not clear why citizens would go along with this. One of the reasons might be, and this is one of the disadvantages of free democratic societies, that you always reach a point at which you believe that democracy and the rule of law and freedom are somehow God-given, that they've always been there and that they will survive. Whereas in actual fact, these are rights that have to be battled for, and that is why we have to do more to fight for this right to freedom. And
we have a really terrible situation in Europe today because, as she said, human rights are not respected.
All these rights that allegedly were supposed to be protected by these regulations are actually violated right now. People cannot work anymore, and they live under the threat of losing their jobs and their livelihoods if they are not having this certificate.
Let's go, Brandon.
Alrighty, welcome to Toxic Airwaves. Got Joe Rogers joining me tonight. How you doing, Joe? Oh, you just muted yourself.
Of this. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. How you doing?
My phone is ringing literally when you hit go. And dude, I'm jacked to be here. I'm filling some big shoes. But let's do this, man.
So yeah, you're out in Dallas right now.
I am. I'm out here having some fun, LARPing for liberty.
Can you tell a story of why you're in Dallas?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Back on beautiful 4/20 of 2018, my neighbor across the street murdered her husband. And I have been summoned as a witness because my Nest Cam footage has a pretty detailed timeline. But I don't know the details of what happened inside the house. So let's hope justice reigns supreme, and we shall see. All I know are the facts of what I captured on my camera. So anyway, court tomorrow.
Damn. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
That'll definitely be an interesting experience. I have never sat as a witness on a trial, nor do I ever want to.
Yeah, I feel weird. It's the courts are not something I want to spend a lot of time with too. The state hates you, number one, but here I am. It's like, wow, they're actually trying to do something right, enforce some laws and this poor family. Anyway, I never have done anything like this, so it'll be an experience.
Nice. Well, thank you for pinch hitting and joining us. You're a great co-host.
I feel right at home with you. I feel like this pod has been escalated up a couple notches without our man Steve being here.
What do you mean escalated?
And much better, higher quality already.
Definitely higher quality without Skeef. But yeah, so Skeef is he's out.
Heaven, rest in peace, Skeef.
Skeef is out of the country right now. Bummer that he can't make it tonight, but he will be back hopefully next week.
I saw some pictures on the timeline, and his view looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure where he's at, but it does look amazing. So in the chat, Don says Joe had a sick Halloween setup. You got anything to say to that?
I agree, Don. It was sick as hell. I've been doing it. My father-in-law puts it on for like the past 5 years, 6 years, and every year it gets a little bit bigger. So I don't know, probably like between 12 and 15 animatronics. We probably had like 200 kiddos come through last night, and scaring kids, hearing little kids scream is hilarious and fun, and seeing parents terrified. It's a blast, man. Have a cold beer, scare some kids. Halloween's a lot of fun where I come from.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, Tucson, I don't know. It's like the major holiday in Tucson is Halloween and Dia los Muertos and, you know, that stuff. And it's like the city lives for it. And, you know, there's like where I come from out near Chicago, it was all about Christmas. Like the city would just get decked out for Christmas. But yeah, Tucson's all about Halloween.
Okay, so this shows how out of touch I am. Dia de los Muertos is Halloween. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know what day that happened on.
No, I don't think it's Halloween. It's a separate thing, but it falls right around the same time. So, and I'm dumb. I'm not an expert on it. So,
okay, this is literally the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Toxic Airwaves. Well, anyways, I titled this episode for tonight, Climate Lockdowns Incoming. And this has been something I've been, I think a lot of people have been aware of in the Bitcoin space, that they're going to try and push lockdowns on us. They were posturing for it during the what you call it, the COVID lockdowns, that how much better everything is for the economy now that people aren't driving around and flying on planes. And we got a bunch of parasitic maniacs meeting together in the UK discussing how they're going to fix the climate by making everybody poor and eat bugs. So, yeah. You got any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's just clown world for one. You just visit open economies like in Texas and Florida, I'm sure in your neck of the woods, and there's just you can feel the mentality is totally different in those places. I mean, things are moving and flowing. And it's just completely ridiculous that other parts of these United States are locking down and being such bitches. So, I mean, like, they say trust the science and all this bullshit. And why aren't their bodies stacking up in the streets in these states with open policy? It's just completely ridiculous. It's nefarious. There's some agenda that me and you don't know about, but I mean, ultimately it's about power, and it's disgusting, and fuck them all.
Amen. That's beautiful, Joe. So Dread is coming to the rescue. Day of the Dead is November 1st. All Hallows Eve, Halloween, is October 31st, the eve before the Day of the Dead. And the Day of the Dead is Dia de los Muertos.
Don't trust verify. I don't know if I trust Dread.
Oh, I trust Dread on this. That sounds about right. So yeah, fuck the state. Fuck these maniacs in power. I mean, it's just they lie about literally everything. And you know, this climate push, I think, is incredibly sinister because they're going after the food supply, you know, and that's their ultimate goal. And it seems like, you know, the COVID, I can't keep up with the chat. That's awesome. Clancy's in here.
She's shitting on me.
Clancy says, Dread definitely untrustworthy. And then Dread responds right after that, fuck the state. So, should we not trust Dread on?
Take it with a grain of salt.
But yeah, I mean, the climate isn't real. That's the first order of business.
Climate's a psyop.
Yep.
Okay, I'll take the bait here. Expand on that.
It's a social construct.
Okay, so is like time a social construct as well?
And anything that's, you know, inconvenient to my worldview is a social construct and therefore not real. If we're going to be using the logic of the masses right now.
Okay, I feel you. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely social construct, climate. They've been saying it for so long. They've been pumping this and beating this drum. The world's going to end in the next 10 years. They just keep moving the goalpost. They keep redefining things and changing names. I mean, do you think that people are wising up to it? I mean, is there hope?
Yes. I think there's a lot of hope in this regard. And, well, at least in public perspective, I think there's a lot of hope. I think the average person, you know, just wants to go about their daily life. And when they start implementing these policies and they become incredibly inconvenient when the gas prices go through the roof across the board. I mean, it's already ridiculous in some places like Chicago, California, New York, the commie territories. It's pretty bad, but when it goes across the board in all the other states and everybody's like, oh, they're trying to make us poor. You know, my steak is now $1 billion instead of, you know, $8 and, you know, stuff like that. People are going to get pretty pissed. The problem is, you know, what does the non-compliance look like? Are people going to just completely route around, the USDA? Are they going to route around, you know, whatever regulation, the EPA, whatever regulations, you know, there are trying to clamp down on gas production and transporting goods and services? That's the real problem. So as far as people getting pissed off and not like buying into the narrative, there's going to be the small group of
these fucking lemmings
that go along with it, you know, and support it regardless. I think the general population is not really going to be happy with it. But you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they fight it. I think we're going to be having to, you know, have some serious conversations about buying our own trucks and smuggling gasoline across the borders, you know, and stuff like that. So I don't know. What kind of firing it back on you? Do you think there's hope in this?
Yeah, look, I'm a very optimistic person. I mean, it's probably going to get more dark before it gets light, but definitely optimistic on the future. And you know, my hope is that, I mean, as people get affected and, you know, people have to get wrecked before they see the light is how I feel. So as people's pocketbooks continue to get wrecked, they're going to wise up and start questioning the status quo. And I think it will probably get more violent and aggressive towards non-compliance, and they're going to make things really tough for us. We're still in peacetime Bitcoin. We're not haven't even scratched the surface of wartime Bitcoin. But I mean, we're definitely on the right side of history. You know, talking about smuggling gasoline, I'm curious. I watching this global chip shortage and hearing about Ford and Chevy, you know, possibly running out of chips if anything fucked up happens over in China, Taiwan, Korea area. Are we going to see a resurgence, Cuba style, of old non-chip related vehicles, or is this going to be a thing?
Yeah, I think it's already going to be a thing. It's kind of getting absurd. So like if you go and you talk to somebody at a car dealership right now, they might have one or two new cars on the lot. And I was talking to a guy pretty recently about it, and they were like sending their salesmen to malls to go and like try and buy cars off of people. And that's how ridiculous it is. Like we're just not getting, I think Lynn Alden posted a little while back that Toyota was cutting their production of cars by some absurd amount, like 40 to 60%, which just blew my mind. And I think that's entirely going to be a reality, and it's going to be weird. That's something that I also need to do, is go into the repair shops and see, you know, are they getting parts, and where the issues are. But yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it makes me want to seriously do my own research and find the most reliable / most parts readily available vehicles on the road that are non-electronic. Like at what point in time did we go from analog to digital when it comes to a vehicle? Yeah. And that's the sweet spot. I imagine it's like early 90s probably, but the less the better probably. I hope it doesn't go down that path, but if it does, we'll be all right. We'll innovate.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Zero.
Yeah, and I don't want to have to assign a fucking terms of service and give away my GPS location to fucking Tesla or any of these car companies that are just going to like drive themselves and listen to me and everything I do inside the vehicle and all this bullshit. I mean, we will probably, until they make it illegal to drive a fucking old car, you know, like that's the alternative.
Yeah. And this is something that surprised me that people weren't more upset about in the infrastructure bill, was KYC cars. Like they were wanting to put cameras in it, and you know, other things to like test whether you were drunk or not. And essentially what it was
fucking tax you per mile.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is something that's going to be incredibly destructive, and I think is going to be a critical point for us to be non-compliant, and is the carbon tax. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah.
Would they just, I mean, it seems unrealistic to tax on mileage because that would take some self-reporting. Does it just make its way to the gas pump at that point? I mean, that seems like the only thing that could happen.
I mean, I don't know. They could do a bunch of stuff with this. They could ramp up the emissions laws, and I mean, just imagine every time you go into emissions, they check your mileage, and so they could run that across a database to see if you're being compliant with reporting your miles driven. They could deputize, you know, the big tech companies to track you with your phone. They could, you know, make it so that you have to have a little box in your car that tracks your GPS location. I mean, there's just like endless things that they could do in order to accomplish this. And I don't put it past them to go to any length to, you know, implement these things because of what we've seen over the past year and a half. So I don't think it's unreasonable to imagine that they could be doing these things.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the state, just to get more power and put more shackles on us. And we just have to resist and fight and figure out a way. And I mean, like, I always talk about the state hates you. And I mean, it's a journey. You don't just wake up and know everything to do to peacefully protest and fight back. So I don't know, just start small and just keep resisting in little ways, and it'll add up, and we'll figure out what we have to do when we have to.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about making this as expensive as possible for them to implement, to the point where they just get so frustrated and give up. Like
is that part of like the anarchist cookbook? Is that one of those tactics in there?
I don't know. I have to go.
I feel like I've read that.
Yeah, it could be a thing. It's been so long since I legitimately looked at the anarchist cookbook.
No, that's like guerrilla warfare tactics, is infiltrate the state and just make it as fucking terribly inefficient as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So everyone out there listening, go get a good state job and fucking drag your feet.
Yeah.
What's his name in Parks and Rec? Ron
Swanson.
Go Ron Swanson.
Yeah. We need more Ron Swansons in this world. So they could set a minimum mile per gallon threshold and tax the hell out of anyone that doesn't meet it, says Don.
So what is it? A minimum taxation?
Yeah, he says minimum, but I would imagine that's the maximum. So if you go above the maximum, then you would get taxed a shit ton.
Yeah.
But
okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, that doesn't. They don't want us driving, so I think the reason why they don't want us driving is because it's a lot more difficult to control that. Oh, okay, gotcha. So Don explains that it's to speed up the turnover of cars. That makes sense.
That would make sense. They want us spending money.
That's why you have to drive Japanese cars, because they run forever. Yeah, I was talking to a guy that was bragging to me about his Ford truck, and he said it's at 90,000 miles and it's only halfway of its life. And I was like, dude, you should be getting aiming for 400,000 miles out of a truck, a good truck.
Yeah.
Maybe more. That's just my opinion.
I kind of like where your head was at, though. You were going down a different path than turnover. I think you were going down limiting transportation, limiting maybe jurisdictional arbitrage, tracking humans. Is that where you were going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
probably both.
Yeah, Yeah, probably both. I mean, I could see them doing incentives like that. Like they could, oh yeah, so Zorn's talking about this. So, I mean, they could give a tax break or some sort of, they're like, if you get a new car with, all this KYC bullshit in it, monitoring, tracking devices, we'll give you some sort of subsidy, kind of like they have with electric cars. And that way, people are like, oh, cool, I get this new fancy car with all of this, crazy shit that, it's whatever, but it's an upgrade from my old car. And I would imagine that would probably...
they'll go full COVID. They'll be like, yo, free Krispy Kreme for a day. Buy your car.
Yeah. Well, guys, I been listening to the experts recently, and climate change won't get fixed until everybody's vaccinated. So that's the first step to fixing the world. I don't know what you think about that. We've been seeing headlines like that are that absurd recently.
It's just insane. It's so insane. We talk about the normies wising up and needing their pocketbooks, but like eventually I feel like there's such a groundswell of people who are so pissed off at the media, probably on like normie Facebook and whatnot, that they've got to be like through osmosis catching on to what the fuck's going on and questioning the stupid fucking headlines. We have to reach like some level of penetration amongst the masses at some point. But I say that, and then you walk in Kroger and Little Rock and everyone's got a fucking mask on, and it's like, come on, people, think for yourselves. But you get out in the country or even like over here across the border in Texas, and they're living very free. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, definitely. So Clancy says, I want my car to be like my husband. They should both take me places and shut the fuck up.
That's good. That's a good woman. Someone should marry her.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is penetrating the masses a little bit, but what we're getting is like the Let's Go Brandon movement is like a kind of a pro-Trump movement, which is not really, positive or actually an answer to anything. So ultimately what I see happening here is like the masses are going to be waging this culture war. And it's like, I want freedom. And what freedom means is my kids pray in school, and, we talk about the Constitution, and we can have our guns, and they put the drug dealers in jail, and the cops, like, there's like that aspect of it. And
then we want to stick a foot up Iraq's ass.
Yeah. And then the other side is like, the climate is ending. The world is ending. We need to like create these totalitarian, concentration camps to put all the freedom people in. And so I think ultimately,
and then they also say we must bomb Iraq.
Yep.
it's both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. The conservative culture is just insane. It really drives me crazy. I used to be, a bit of a conservative. But the state hates you, and but ultimately, like, there's going to be this massive clash like we've seen at, school boards, and it's going to ramp up. And, right now, they're going after parents, at these school boards and calling them terrorists and stuff like that, which is great because all those people are just like sucking up resources and making noise while giving us the opportunity to, build things behind the scenes. And, they're not going after the anarchists yet. And so,
well, Clancy posted a pretty dope meme. It was like talking about the mama bear protecting the kiddos from the vaccines. And like the mama bears are the last line of defense. And, you piss off enough moms, you're going to get fucked, man. I mean, they're going to organize. Moms Talk. They're very organized on like Facebook, and they have their own communities locally. You start dropping little red pills and orange pills on these people. And, again, optimistic in me. Hopefully you do see some change, or at least some organized resistance. And I think you are seeing organized resistance, even at the school board level. I mean, as shitty as the schools are, these parents are fighting for something, and they are resisting what's being pushed on their kiddos. So, I mean, I think the reason that you're starting to see this social media, a net positive is social media, is being able to share these ideas, maybe inspire some parents like, yo, if they're doing that in fucking Nashville, Tennessee, I can do this in Tucson, Arizona, you know, and like these ideas propagate, and then they see the playbook and they're able to share the playbook on what they're going and able to say whenever they're sitting in front of these committees. Because, I mean, if you're pissed off and you know you're pissed off, you know the reason why, then maybe you're not very good at articulating the reasons and what to say. Well, if you watch one of these fucking shared videos, guess what? Now you got the real playbook and you can organize and go resist a bit better. So I think that's pretty exciting shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess my perspective is like, there's some major issues, like there's some core issues that neither side of the culture war really cares to talk about. And, you know, a lot of the issues that they pick as being, yeah, I mean, you look at like the whole take a knee thing, the NFL battle, and like how that was like a dominant part of the culture war for a while. And that's just like such a superficial issue. Like, honestly, who gives a shit if some guy takes a knee at the end? You know, when you have the Fed printing money, you've got the IRS going after people, you've got inflation like going through the roof. You got all these issues that are really, oh yeah, and not to mention 20 years in Afghanistan for very little to no reason. Like, you've got all these issues that are like kind of core issues that aren't being addressed in this culture war. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I guess the protest is where I see protests as effective is just like letting people know that you're not alone. And it's like giving permission and making noise for other people to like join in the battle. But I don't think it accomplishes anything. And like where I see like real action happening is like, you know, we talk about like this, if the schools suck, then take your kids out of the school, like defund the schools. They don't get their federal money because you don't have your kid in there. And then your kid doesn't get abused by, you know, the teachers and school staff. You know, and I think, yeah, I kind of have an agorist view on this. Like, I just think we have to be running counter economics as much as possible, looking to defund the state, looking to, you know, empower black markets or individuals not paying their taxes, you know, and doing things like that. And I know that's kind of like an edgy, risky thing to say, but things are pretty bad right now. And it just, like, the way I look at it is like, if I participate and support the system, you know, I'm being complicit, and I don't really want to. So, yeah.
Yeah, you made some good points. I don't have anything to add. I think I generally agree with what you say. I am glad to see the, if you would call it, resistance. But I mean, going back to one of the things you said about, you know, not addressing first principles, you know, school board meetings are like third, fourth, fifth principles, you know, and I'm just going to say, I guess, normies, you got to start somewhere, and hopefully they work their way up the principle list. Obviously, I think you and I would agree, fix the money, fix the world is kind of like the core first principle. And I'm hopeful they'll get there, but I'm an optimist.
Yeah. No, I'm an optimist too. And I think like we oftentimes frame the discussion around this idea that we have to get the masses to buy into this. Like, for Bitcoin to be effective, we need mass adoption. And I think Bitcoin can be extremely effective in our lives today, you know, when we create circular economies locally, and when we empower individuals in our communities, in our inner circle. Like, if you have a small network of people that are can effectively opt out from the state to a certain degree, and, you know, not consume fiat food, not consume, you know, fiat media, not consume, you know, fiat education, you know, all of these different things are diversifying their incomes, you know, doing things that make them less dependent and impacted by state action. Like, I think that's incredibly powerful. And I think that's not, you know, focused on a lot, because it's like, the idea of like waiting for the masses to wake up and be aware of this is kind of a, you know, a rough effort. Like if they haven't woken up yet, they're probably not going to wake up. And I think what's ultimately going to shift things, you know, in a different direction is our success in doing these things and other people around us seeing them and wanting to emulate that. So yeah, that's just, and I think what's really exciting about it is how many people, you know, are moving in this direction and actually adopting these, you know, principles and ideas and taking it meaningful action in this way.
I just want to find a rancher that'll take Bitcoin for like half cow at a time.
Yeah.
That's like on my bucket list when I get to Texas.
Well, there's a project going on in Texas to do that, to create that network of ranchers selling cattle for Bitcoin. I think the guy's name was like Mr. T-Man or something like that. He was on the Bitcoin and podcast, and he was talking about it.
I'm all about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the solution. I don't know how these people are going to continue to be able to operate when they start taxing each head of cattle to infinity.
It's insane, man. The lengths they will go, instead of just operating within their means and cutting back, the lengths they will go to just fuck us.
Yeah. Well, they hate us.
It's a fact.
They're a bunch of loonies.
Yeah, look, I don't have a lot of faith in the normies either, but like you said, NGU technology will bring them in. Mm-hmm. And once they take the orange pill, it isn't like you can untake it. Yeah. Once you see it, you cannot unsee the light. So NGU will fix that hopefully over time.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my take on it is like, I used to be a lot more about trying to get Bitcoin into as many people's hands as possible. But like, as we're seeing recently with how they're utilizing the KYC laws and how they're trying to, they're talking about things like unrealized capital gains tax and, you know, all of these issues. I think like a lot of people that get their hands on Bitcoin are, you know, going to be attracted and from the masses are going to be attracted to like the log scales, the Mike Alfreds, the British hodls that, you know, are encouraging them to buy the paper Bitcoin. And I guess what I'm really interested in personally is people, you know, taking self-custody, you know, looking at privacy.
Yeah, but the number of people who just like take that step day one, I would say is very small. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would say probably 90% plus of Bitcoiners bought on exchange, bought it via paper like GBTC and all these other instruments. So unfortunately the scammers, they're going to persist. Their faces and names will change over time. But I think that the education and on-ramps are, you know, more plentiful than they've been over the past couple of years. That number is going to continue to go up. I mean, if we need to onboard billions of people, we need hundreds and thousands of more educational resources and on-ramps. And it is nefarious to see all the fucking links that the state's going through for like KYC monitoring. And you see just how evil Coinbase is, just partnering right up to the feds. Yeah, it's crazy. I would be really curious to know just how well, you know, CoinJoin and mixing technologies actually work. If you actually had access to the tool set that the state has, that would be interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, definitely mix your coins, folks, and try to buy non-KYC. Do everything you can. Try to earn Bitcoin. But at the same time, it's like, how deep can the state get? I would be curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that's, you know, the hard part that, like, the hard question is, like, I don't think any of us are really capable of protecting ourselves ultimately from a state level attack in that regard.
But there's so many of us, and we all are strapping heat. So like, fuck them.
Yeah. And that's where I think it's interesting is like, you know, we need to make it as more expensive as possible for them. And that's like, you know, the beauty of owning arms is like, it's not as easy to go like break down somebody's door, in the US as it is in like the UK because we have guns and we might fire back. But
Yeah, that's automatically more expensive. And here's also the thing is you black bag one Bitcoiner and it gets out. Now every Bitcoiner is going to know they're going to be anticipating black bags.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to work out good for the state.
Yeah. Well, they somewhat black bagged JStark. And it seems like Coinbase was complicit in turning that. Yeah, Coinbase is a bunch of spooks. I guess that should be the new meme on Coinbase. Not only are they racist, but they're spooks.
They're spooks. They're compliant in surveillance. They serve up shit coins. They push it on their users. Like they are evil. And I had some OG trying to like preach to me like how fucking awesome Armstrong is because he was there in the early days and he was building and like, guess what? Fuck Brian Armstrong. I don't care about his fucking legacy. It's gone. It's tarnished. He may have fought for Bitcoin and the freedom ideals back in the day, but like, I don't give a fuck, man. Like, what you're doing now is beyond evil, and your actions are deplorable. And I'm not going to respect what you did in the early days. Fuck you. Someone else would have done it. So go fuck yourself, Brian Armstrong. I hope you're listening. Hope you're listening to Toxic Airwaves, you fucking piece of shit.
Amen. Brian Armstrong is a piece of shit. So here's an interesting question from 12. So 12 asks, how much of a fight will there be to resist confiscation? And how wide will the trend catch on?
I don't, man, this is tough. How do you confiscate words? It's just it seems so costly. That's, goes back to the economics of violence and kind of what you're talking about. It seems very, very costly to try to extract private keys from an individual. I don't know how that plays out. There was a story from maybe a year or two ago. A guy in Germany went to jail and they were trying to extract his private keys and they never got them from him. And they finally let him out of jail like 2 years later. And that was like forced hodl for 2 years by the state. Thank you very much. But I don't know how to answer the question.
Yeah. I think that
I think we underestimate what they would do. I think that the state is very evil, and if they get their sights set on something, they have a lot of resources, a lot of guns, more surveillance. I think it could be bad if they really wanted to do that. But I hope that there's enough people in power that would not want that to happen here in the States. But you just never know.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Some Zorn says Spook Base instead of Coinbase.
Spook Base, that's good. I like that.
That's a really good one. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting. Like, this is something that makes me really wary of big mining operations like Riot, and as well as the fact that MicroStrategy, the way they're going about custodying all their Bitcoin, as well as other companies. I mean, what would be really interesting is if, like, we're talking about non-compliance on an individual level, but what would be really interesting is large corporations not complying with the state on this one. Ones that are holding a lot of Bitcoin, because, ultimately, like you said, they can't shoot us all. We'll be Naruto running. They can't catch us. Yeah. Well, we're faster than their bullets en masse. They might get a couple of us, but
the corporation level, we didn't see it play out on the level that you're talking about, but an interesting one is BitMEX, who have now bent the knee and complied. Mm-hmm. But back when like Arthur Hayes was being subpoenaed, what was it? I guess it was last year, maybe 2020. They essentially wanted to shut down BitMEX, but jurisdictional arbitrage, they weren't here. They don't have a fucking office. They didn't have a place they could kick the door down. Their executives were out of the country, and they wanted to stop BitMEX from operating in the US. And they just kept operating. And then they did finally like shut down US based people. But like nothing happened. And then finally the lawyers got together and they negotiated something, but Arthur Hayes paid up some fines for allowing derivatives trading on their platform by U.S. residences, and now they're full KYC. So that's sad to see, but they didn't shut down. They kept operating. It would be interesting if they really just said "fuck you," and Arthur's like, "Okay, fine, I'm never going back to America. You can go fuck yourself." That would have been interesting, and eventually we'll see that happen. Or someone's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to El Salvador. So bye.
Yeah. I guess, as I'm thinking about this conversation, so 12 threw some, interesting comments about in the chat about like how state power can dissipate overnight, how secession talk is growing. And I think the state has a lot of resources, but what it comes down to is like, do they have the will to enforce it? And I think to a certain degree, we can definitely bank on the fact that central planning fails. It just, the question is how many people are they going to kill in the process of trying to accomplish what they're doing? And so I guess my interest ultimately in this conversation is like trying to survive this to be on the other end. And I think that's, kind of a serious conversation we need to, have in this situation. Don Reddy says 80+% of the population consists of spineless worms bending over begging for the status dick.
Do you want to just survive or do you want to thrive?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately I want to thrive.
I
want to be on the other end, rebuilding the new society, with the remnant. Like that's something I'm interested in doing. And so kind of from a tactical standpoint, that's what I'm interested to do. And I don't want to wait it out in a gulag. I'm not really willing to go in a gulag until that point.
Yeah. I mean, practical advice would be, learn practical skills, learn the things that you think, the skill sets that you need to be sovereign, and learn some specialization so that you can add to the remnant, certain skill sets.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So we got some comments on Naruto running. So Zorn says the key is to Naruto run in all different directions. And Lurk says, I've been practicing my Naruto run on the treadmill at the gym. That's amazing. We need to get a video of that.
Low key, kids they naturally do that.
Oh yeah. I've taught all my nephews and nieces how to Naruto run, and cousins.
My daughters do it, and I swear they've never seen Naruto. They've definitely not seen that anime series. So maybe it's more prevalent than not just that show, but I don't know where they got it, but they fucking love it.
Yeah. One of the things, so my girlfriend grew up in Tucson, and I grew up north of Chicago, and one of the things that kind of amazes me is like the shared memes that we both grew up with, despite the geographical distance. Like a lot of the same things. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'll make a joke from middle school or high school, and she'll totally get it and say that was a joke.
Okay, so not like pop culture related, more just like kids memes that have just propagated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, it's super. Yeah. Well, kind of going back to my climate is a social construct, or the climate isn't real. I just say that because I saw this headline that I thought was really funny, that YouTube was going to start banning climate deniers. So I thought I would take that a little bit literally and see if they'd ban me.
Where do flat earthers fall? Do they get banned in that scenario?
I think they do, honestly. Well, whatever it is, YouTube's been super weird since 2016. There used to be a ton of great stuff on there, like when Alex Jones used to be on there. It used to be the Wild West, where you could find all sorts of interesting rabbit holes to get down. I think Pizzagate was when things kind of got clamped down, and so sometimes there's still interesting stuff on there. There's a channel that I really love that I can't remember, that's kind of not necessarily flat earth, but along those lines of like, these are the end times type things.
What about like Project Veritas? Is that trash?
Oh, I enjoy Project Veritas. I mean, I feel like they're culture warriors and, you know, kind of focus on, I mean, could you imagine an expose going into the Federal Reserve, talking about all the shady shit, like the piles of cash that are getting shipped over unmarked bills over to Afghanistan and C-130s or C-17s. If they had exposés like that, that would be dope. But I feel like they oftentimes focus on, you know, it's like the Antifa teacher. Like,
it's so underwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
The janitor at Pfizer spills all.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, like,
I'm not discrediting it.
Yeah.
Okay, like I enjoy it too. It's entertaining, and you know, fuck those companies.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder, like, it's hard to look at all this stuff that's transpired in the last year and a half and be able to discern what's a psyop and what's not, because, you know, it's like, I think the COVID vaccine is essentially a compliance test. And so there's a question in my mind of, like, you know, is this just a purge? They're just getting everybody out of, you know, the military, the police, you know, these different companies that, you know, are non-compliant and would be difficult after they implement their things. And, you know, is Project Veritas just being utilized as, you know, an asset in there to feed the non-compliant, to make them upset, to, you know, be easily targeted? So that
it's like 4D chess. The state's playing with us.
Yeah. And the question comes up is, like, is that giving them too much credit, or is that, you know, realistic?
Yeah, I feel like they're probably doing some of that. I don't know if Project Veritas is one. I mean, it kind of feels like it because it just seems kind of shticky, and it seems like something, the quality level that the state could orchestrate. But that there's definitely that shit happening. There's definitely misinformation and these kind of campaigns that just try to probably honeypot information and clicks and eyeballs and attention to put us in buckets and tag our metadata with certain keywords.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard to figure out what's going on right now. Things are just so all over the place. And, you know, and I think, like, maybe it's unfair to, like, go out and, you know, to say something like, oh, James O'Keefe is a spook. But, you know, the question is like, is he being a useful tool for the establishment, unintentionally? And I think that's more of a
useful question.
Yeah, helpful question.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Dude, are you down with Meta?
Meta. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what goes out. I mean, honestly, in the beginning or middle of 2020, I'd considered buying an Oculus Rift because those things seem pretty cool. But, you know, there's a part of me that I'm kind of freaked out by virtual reality because my experiences with it is so immersive. I kind of, like, forget where I am and lose track of time and space.
So you have the, like, the Fleshlight adapter, I assume?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah, you got to go all in.
Yeah.
Full immersive experience.
So, I mean,
okay. I'm not suggesting anyone goes and gets one of these fucking things, but one of the silver linings of 2020, you know, we're all locked in our fucking houses. We saw the emergence of, like, Reckless VR, which is like Udi's VR meetup that was happening every Saturday, and they're having cool speakers, and it was like the meetup scene. We had a place for Bitcoiners to organize. And then like BitPaint, he's a virtual world creator. He partnered with Gigi, and they created some real cool, like, art galleries and real interesting spaces for people to go and see and have Bitcoin experiences and meet up. And I had some really cool conversations, and it is immersive. I don't have a headset, but I've got a big ass computer screen, and you can get sucked in there, and you have a headset and a cold beer in front of you. And it's like it's not as good as meeting in person, but, you know, if you're stuck in your fucking house, this is a pretty cool thing. So, I mean, I'm bullish on VR. Obviously, fuck Facebook. I mean, who knows what all the data points they'll be collecting? Every data point they will be collecting. And they're just trying to create another walled garden, and that's kind of terrifying. But I think that we will see open source alternatives. So, I mean, like, that's the other side of the coin here.
Yeah, definitely. Chat really loved your VR fleshlight comment. Zorn says, I just hook up the VR to my shop vac.
That's the budget way.
Yeah, that sounds kind of dangerous, but yeah, I guess like this kind of brings up an interesting theme. One of the communities that I'm, on the periphery of in Tucson is like a super anti-technology community. So they look at Bitcoin and they kind of clump it in with like the World Economic Forum, talking about like tracking people's metadata on blockchains and, weird social credit stuff. And they think like all digital is bad, which is an interesting argument to consider sometimes. It's not, obviously what I subscribe to, because I like Bitcoin and I like technology. And I think it ultimately is like what will protect our rights. But yeah, I guess the thing that's interesting, like with this VR push, is it's interesting timing. I think ultimately they want us to be plugged into these machines of sorts to, travel less and kind of willingly enter into our own prisons that they're putting us into. So that's the thing that, comes to mind for me, like with this Facebook Meta.
That feels like a conspiracy theory twist, but I mean, like, the timing is peculiar, but I mean, like, you could probably see this direction. If you just look at like the Oculus acquisition, probably like 6 years ago, something like that. They were probably going in this direction, but the timing is interesting. And the whole name change of the overall company is very fucking interesting. They're wanting to, obviously, I believe, distance their stock ticker from the brand of Facebook, because Facebook's probably not growing with younger demographic. I feel like I've read that somewhere. So they need to rebrand themselves.
Yeah, COVID's been pretty bad for Facebook's business model, taking out their users.
You think so? Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's too out there because, this is coming at a time that they're discussing about trying to limit our travel as much as possible and saying that driving is bad, and things like that. And so, yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll push back and I'll say, do you think that's state coordinated move? That would be my question. Or do you think it's opportunistic timing for Facebook that like, hey, we see this as a trend, we were wanting to go in this direction? Which one?
Well, I mean, it's Facebook. They're essentially like an intelligence arm of the state.
You're right.
So to say that it's state coordinated would definitely not be that far of a reach. I mean, they've been trying to control information for the state. I mean, we've seen it back, with that leak of Zuckerberg emailing Fauci back and forth. So it totally could be. I mean, when we talk about the state, what the state operates as is, like, I think when people think of the state, they think of the politicians themselves, like they think of Joe Biden and stuff like that. But the state is just an apparatus for these parasites sitting at the top to try and implement whatever they want to. And like the way I see it is, we're at the end of a long-term debt cycle, and the financial system's falling apart, and they want to reap the benefits that they've been able to over the past 80, 100 years. And they're just trying to, control demolition this one to implement a new one that allows them to be parasites and leech off the rest of the population. So
that's like CBDCs, right?
Yeah. But yeah, man, if you're not a conspiracy theorist yet, yeah. So
not going to make it.
Yeah. I mean, the way I try and like look at it is like, we're just two people doing our thing, like speculating what these maniacs are doing. And there's no way to to ultimately know, because we're just bombarded with so much bullshit information all the time. But there are some themes, and I think it's, you know, kind of important to like see what the themes are. It's like they want to financially surveil and censor us in every way possible and have full control. And so, you know, we need to fight back against that.
And there's no secret about it. I mean, you hear like Karsten's at the BIS, he's very, very vocal about what you just said. That is their core agenda of the BIS.
Yeah. It's amazing how open they are. I mean, like, most of what Alex Jones does, and, you know, I've traditionally not been his biggest fan. I used to love him back in the good old days, and then I kind of started to, I mean, it just seemed like he was so alarmist about everything, and then, you know, now it's kind of all over the place at InfoWars, for sure. But essentially what he does with a lot of his stuff is he just, like, goes and reads published documents by these people and bases his conclusions off of that. And so you can, most of this stuff is out in the open like that, like you said.
Yeah, it's a just completely disrespectful. They just tell us what their plans are. They don't hide them, and then they go fucking do them. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's a theory on that, and curious what you think about it, but the theory is that they do it out in the open for karmic reasons. Like, if we tell everybody what the nefarious things that we're up to, then we're not, and they know and they do nothing about it, then we're not as accountable for it. I guess everybody else is complicit with us.
Okay, so you're saying they do that karmic wise to not feel as bad? Is that why you mentioned the word karmic?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Okay. I would say definitely a possibility. I'm definitely open to that. You know, I think that they're definitely doing some fucked up, dark stuff, and, you know, they want karma on their side at all cost, even if that means like sacrificing somebody. But it's probably also a lot of A/B focus group testing, you know, to see what they can fucking say without it triggering anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great take too. I mean, I think they roll. I think that's what Yellen's been doing with that unrealized cap gains. She just rolls it out to see what people's responses are.
Well, you saw what happened over 600, and they're like, "Oh, no, we meant 10,000. We meant $10,000." And it's like, bitch, where are you coming up with these fucking numbers? They're literally just focus group testing to see where people will lose their fucking mind. And eventually $10,000 will be equivalent to $600, and they'll have mission accomplished, full surveillance, because, you know, they're not going to raise it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they haven't raised the, there's a threshold of a financial transaction at a bank. I think if you withdraw something like $3,500, it registers with the bank internally that they have to like flag it and KYC it. It's some I made that number up. Mm-hmm. The point I'm trying to make is that number, Caitlin Long was talking about it, who's, you know, a big buff in the banking system, but that number has not increased since like the mid to early 80s. So if you inflation adjusted that, you know, that'd be like well over $10,000. But here we are with that same number at $3,500 that the bank has to like let the feds know, like, hey, this person actually did this transaction. So it's like regulation that's put in place for KYC AML, and it doesn't move with inflation. And here we are now, like, are $3,500 transactions that uncommon? I'd say a lot less common than they were 20, 30 fucking years ago. So this $10,000 number that they're pulling out of thin air, it's not too hard to believe that in 10 years, $10,000 transactions will be the new $1,000 transaction. Yeah. And then we'll have less privacy and less rights. Fuck them.
Yeah. That's one of the amazing things about inflation. So like Tucson, you know, in particular, I've talked about this a lot on this show, and it'd be interesting for people to kind of explore this, you know, in wherever they're living, because I think this is going to be a universal thing in the war on cash and the move towards central bank digital currencies. But there's this proposition being voted on, Prop 206, that is framed as it's an increase of minimum wage by 2025 to $15 an hour. And so I think the minimum wage in Tucson's like $12.50, and that's fine. It's like, I think a lot of people, like, if you understand basic economics, you understand that minimum wage laws are dumb and harmful. But in the face of things, like, the cost of living has gone up exponentially. Like, housing prices have doubled in Tucson in the last 5 years. And so for the average person looking at this that, isn't really tuned in, they're like, oh yeah, that sounds like totally reasonable to raise the minimum wage. But what's packed into it is all these, provisions to try and tax cash transactions and to enforce minimum wage laws. Like, if you have a babysitter or somebody like the neighbor kid, like mowing your yard, or basic things like that, and they frame it as like, this isn't being framed to the general public, but like for the people that are reading this, it's framed as this idea of like, we need to tax all the illegal immigrants that are working here. And I think it's kind of insidious and crazy VCal said voted big no for 206. Good job. And that tyrant Regina Romero wants a raise. That's hilarious. That lady sucks. She's our mayor. She's worthless. She's like your typical progressive wannabe AOC. Yeah,
Regina.
Yeah, that's what we all call her. I don't remember where I was going with that.
Yeah, I think it was a nefarious part of inflation and, the populist belief in, raising minimum wage and what it will actually do, which is increase prices more across the board. But I mean, like, people are getting wrecked. They can't afford a fucking home. So the system is just broken and flawed. So it's like, if this is the system, then they probably do need to raise it. I'm not for that. I'm just saying, like, well, it probably does need to increase. If they print 25% more fucking dollars in the past 12 months, then they probably need to raise the minimum wage too. Again, not for it. I'm just saying, if this is the reality in the system, how is the bottom 10% supposed to make their fucking mortgage when prices increase across the board by 20%?
Yeah, no, the bottom, however, 80% of people are going to own nothing and be happy. But I guess where I was going with this is, like, the interesting part, like, by 2025, like, if you look at, if inflation keeps up and doesn't accelerate, but if it keeps up at the rate and trajectory that we're going on, $15 an hour is going to be like nothing, when the fries at McDonald's cost $15 an hour, or $15. The part that,
can you imagine working an hour for a French fry?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're going. But
right.
The part that freaks me out about this bill is that it's not the minimum wage law. Like, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would be up in arms, upset about that part of it, because it's harmful, and like what the chat's saying. So 12 says minimum wage law is an Orwellian euphemism for what should be called a maximum employment law. Like, I would have been upset about that, but the part that freaks me out is the provision going after cash transactions, ultimately, because what they're doing is they're creating a framework and enforcement to prosecute people for not paying taxes on cash transactions for little things like babysitters. So like, if your babysitter gets, or your babysitter's mom gets disgruntled that, you were paying her $14 an hour rather than $15 an hour, she then can go to the city, and they have are going to have a special department, if this gets passed, to be able to go and prosecute you as an individual, or if you are employing somebody in some manner under the table, which, Tucson is huge on that. So that's the part that I think is a little bit more insidious and crazy.
Yeah, man, get out, leave Arizona.
No. Hey, at least we can have, I don't know, gun laws are better. We can have we can have the Dagny dagger be produced in Arizona, but it cannot be produced in Texas.
You got us beat.
But yeah.
Fine, I'm moving to Arizona.
I mean, you do you, man. I don't think Texas is a bad place to be. I just think that there's this meme that Texas is the land of the free, you know, when, you know, you get stupid laws like pot's still illegal. And it's a big deal if you get caught like smoking a little bit, or it's just conservative LARPing, you know, for the most part.
No, I agree. And we're just trying to incremental steps to make the life better. So that's why we left where we were.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I will give, like, Austin as a city kind of sucks in the sense of like local laws and not being very freedom oriented, but the Bitcoin community seems, you know, fantastic out there. And I think like ultimately, you know, when, like, I think it's important for all of us to be adopting this attitude of dissidence to a certain degree. And there is something to being surrounded by good, solid people that you can network with and rely on. And Austin has a massive concentration of really cool people in that regard, as well as, you know, Texas in general. So.
Yeah, the Texas Triangle of Austin, Houston, and Dallas. I mean, 3 massive metroplexes. But the Houston Bitcoiner meetup, it's like 300 plus strong. Now, I bet a lot of those are spooks and a lot of those are just oil and gas guys trying to get educated. But there's a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners there too, and guys who are really doing some building, especially in that energy sector. And then in Austin, they've kind of found their niche with BitDevs, and they've, you know, obviously Unchained's there. So there's the financial side of things. I don't think Dallas really has a spot yet. And that's what I'm hoping to get involved with and figure out kind of how to put Dallas on the map. But there's quite a few Bitcoiners there. I don't think we're organized as good as we could be, but like Kaz is running it and I think he's doing a good job. So my goal is just to get involved and take it to the next level.
Yeah. So Don asked me, yeah, no, I think that's great. Yeah, they have an awesome Bitcoin scene in Texas, and we're coming after them slowly but surely. Arizona is a pretty new scene, but
hell yeah.
Yeah, so Don asked me what's the law I talked about with Suckboy Tony on my podcast. So there's a law kind of, I'm trying to remember how to phrase this. So there's a law restricting different types of materials that you can make ammunition out of, that, and I forgot what the Dagny dagger uses, but the Dagny dagger is this really cool piece of ammunition. So
it's essentially a hollow point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it's armor penetrating ammunition. It's 9mm, and the way it gets around armor piercing ammunition being illegal, which has been illegal since the 80s, is that it functions as a hollow point. So there is a little plastic piece that is on the top on the actual bullet that surrounds it, and then a metal piece inside of the plastic piece. So the metal piece is like shaved down into a point with the plastic around it. So what happens is when you shoot it, the plastic piece is attached to the metal piece. It goes and hits, the target. The metal piece goes shooting through whatever it is, whether it's armor or whatever, and the plastic piece stays embedded kind of at the point of contact. And so
it's like it's the punch, and then the dagger will continue its projection.
Yeah. And and so it's a kind of a cool loophole. It's pretty sick. I'm going to buy some when they start producing it.
The state just like they put senseless rules in place, and then builders and innovators, work around them. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. No, I had like a 4-hour conversation with Austin Jones, who's I think the founder of Atlas Arms, or one of the co-founders, and it was really, really fascinating. I'll publish some of that conversation next week, but yeah, I mean, that's essentially the attitude that they took. There's yeah, and it's weird, like looking at all the like different laws all over the place and how, you know, certain states are more friendly to certain things, but that's just like he's gonna go move his production to Oklahoma for this bullet because Texas won't allow him to, and you know, it's dumb just based on the material that it's made out of. So yeah.
Sackboy Tony's building some crazy shit, bro.
Dude, that guy's so cool.
Yeah,
he's one of my all-time favorites. He's yeah, I wanted to talk about 3D guns with you, 3D printed guns a little bit. So,
let's talk about it.
So at Suckboy, I've been having some issues with my 3D printer since I got it a couple months ago, and I think Suckboy walked me through some tips for it that will hopefully get it to work. But the extruder was clogging, and I think it was
you have to level the print bed.
I did that. I'm not that dumb.
It's like 101. Yeah, was it plugged in?
Yes. So
okay.
I think what the issue is because I'm printing in PLA Plus, and I didn't realize that. Like I noticed this a couple times, is that the fan would cool down the extruder too much, so it would drop a few degrees. And he was telling me that if I lowered the fan speed to like 70% instead of 100%, that won't be an issue, and I might be good to go from there. But yeah, whatever. I'll figure it out eventually. I got a lot of projects on my hand, and I've kind of put that off because I have a lot of guns. But
I'd say also keep a bunch of extruder tips on hand.
Yeah,
like learning to. You don't just like become expert overnight. It's like an art form, but trade them out periodically. I'd say, put a fresh one on there. They're not too bad expensive.
Yeah.
So
that's something that's.
But not every time you change a roll of PLA. You shouldn't have to do it every time. So I'll be interested to see if that fixes it.
Yeah. My first print was gonna be the shield, but I think my first print is gonna be that little Jay Stark figurine.
You should do that. Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Mine was Baby Yoda, so had the Jay Stark print been available, I would have done that.
Yeah,
that.
I got mine right here.
I think it's like the de facto first print.
Yeah. Maybe we could talk about the upcoming Mandalorian season here in a little bit. In the Book of Boba Fett, they just dropped the new trailer. It looks pretty sick, but we'll stick with 3D guns for a little bit. But yeah, I think one of the things that's really exciting about the 3D printed gun movement, and this is something that I found when I went to a conference last year and talked to a lot of these guys, is that they were really interested in creating schematics for people in countries outside of the United States that don't have access to the 3D printed firearms. And the stuff that Jay Stark was doing with the FGC9 is absolutely incredible, and kind of the mindset that he had. And, I didn't know that how much of an influence he had on that community in making sure that the schematics were actually usable and functionable before publishing, and some of the other impacts he had. But it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
RIP Jay Stark. Fucking legend. I would say that as an observer, I'm not an expert at 3D printing anything, and but I have been following the community pretty closely for a couple of years now. I gave a small speech at Bit Bop Boom at Katie and Nina's Underground Citadel the past 2 years about 3D printing guns specifically and sovereignty. But I kind of observing the community, hearing kind of anecdotes from Control Pew and Sub420 and like Win and Ivan, you kind of hear in these through pods, not like I know these guys. The impact that Jay Stark brought was definitely this attitude of, he's more of a American than probably 99% of people out there in his belief system. But some of the like really great benefits that you already highlighted was his relentless pursuit of usability and safety. But number one was like documentation. Before the FGC9 version 1 dropped, there was no meme in the community that documentation mattered. Like you would drop files and people would print them, and industrious folks could figure it out. If they knew their way around CAD and they had some experience, maybe gunsmithing or just like iron will, they could figure it out. But Jay Stark was relentless in the attitude that this fucking technology, this freedom technology does not matter if an average Joe can't pick it up and follow the directions and hit print and fabricate this. Like none of this technology matters. We're fucking LARPing if we can't enable an average person to build these in their basement. So I think that attitude, if you look now at the file drops and the documentation that's being created with the FGC9 MK2 and Plastikov and like you name it, like the Hellfire, like all these new models that have been dropped in the past 18 months, they come with fantastic documentation. It's like this renaissance of documentation. Like you don't fucking drop a new file or a new model without some damn good documentation, and the bar is very high, and that's a net positive for the community. So it's really fascinating. I would echo what you said, and it's incredibly powerful technology, and you can't stop the signal. That's a meme that they propagate, and I love it. I mean, you can't stop the flow of this information. This is just files. 3D printing schematics are just information. Information is speech. Like this memes are strong. It's very American, this idea of 3D printing guns for yourself and arming yourself. These are all American ideas, and they go hand in hand with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is in that same spirit that it is code, it is speech, it's backed by encryption. And this is freedom technology. It's fuck you technology. Incredibly bullish to see the advancements in the 3D printing technology since the Liberator was dropped in 13 or so to where we are now with the FGC9 and all the different advancements. I mean, it's really incredible. And it shares some more characteristics of like free and open source technology, whereas, a developer can make an incremental improvement to Bitcoin Core. And, once it gets merged and pushed out, everyone on earth who's a Bitcoiner gets to benefit from it. And we kind of see that same technology rollout when it comes to 3D printed gun technology. Once they figured out how to design the Menendez 9mm Glock magazine, now everyone in the community, they don't have to spend time wasting cycles on developing a mag. They've got the one that works every fucking time. Once they figured out how to design the AR-15 trigger assembly, one of the most readily available trigger assemblies on the planet Earth, now they can just slap that into fucking model. So now you've got your mag built, you've got your mag well built, your trigger assembly built. Now you can do some really fucking cool things. So that's why we're just seeing these advancements. So every time they find some incremental improvement that can be rolled out across the board, everyone benefits from it. And let's fucking go. Print some fucking guns at home, people. An Ender 3 is like $200. You're not a real Bitcoiner if you don't 3D print.
Yeah, you're the reason why I brought a 3D printer, because I wanted to be a real Bitcoiner.
Good for you, man. You're a real Bitcoiner.
Yeah. I mean, it's stories that, we're starting to see these stories come out of people manufacturing their own firearms. And whether it's, Suckboy Tony posted a video or a picture of people in Nigeria using guns that were shooting, they weren't striker fired, but they had electric fired, which is kind of his style. which I think was pretty cool. Or, there's been a recent story going around about rebels in Myanmar setting up an FGC-9 factory. And, you look at how powerful this is. A lot of people outside of the United States just have no ability to make tyranny expensive in the sense of like not having firearms. And so Bitcoin is such an incredible tool for them to be able to route around censorship and debasement and confiscation and, capital controls, all the bullshit. But being able to, assemble a firearm at home and have, the ease of access has been lowered so much. It's a major win for the individual globally. And I think that is what's so cool about this. And I don't really understand why there's so much controversy around this community. I feel like if you care about freedom and you want to see the world free, like 3D printed firearms are incredibly important in that fight.
It's because they, the opponents of freedom, have really soundbitey memes that they propagate. Bitcoin is for child trafficking and porn stars and frauds and drug dealers, and 3D printed guns are for terrorists. And that's a buzzword. Ding, ding, ding. Like, you kind of know the playbook from the state. But I think the community gets a bad rap. The traditional gun community shits on the 3D printed gun guys as they're just psychopaths and caps and don't quite understand them. But I mean, like, this community, if you were to draw a Venn diagram of them, they're not all the same. A large majority of these guys, they only care about guns and gunsmithing. They're just like gun boys. And then there's probably a contingent of them that care about, freedom technology. And then like somewhere overlapping these are those guys who also happen to be like Bitcoiners. And that's kind of like the sweet spot right in the middle of that kind of Venn diagram that is kind of exciting.
Yeah. I think both communities are working for very similar goals. And yeah, so 12 says they're regulating the bullets now. Do-it-yourself primers are the next thing. So one thing that I learned this week is that there are only two companies allowed by the state to actually make primers, which creates a massive bottleneck and is super problematic. And these are issues that are getting worked on by the community. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking. It's like in the US, even when a Democrat first gets elected and everybody goes and panics, buys all the ammo, it's still relatively easy to find it comparatively to the rest of the world. Now, if you're living in like the UK, how do you expect to, or Germany or, any of these insane countries, like how do you expect to find ammunition? It's incredibly important for people in these countries to be able to build or create their own ammunition. And this is something Jay Stark was able to do. And I think he was using nail gun primers, but I'm not sure. I have a nail gun and it uses compressed air to shoot it, so I don't know how that works. But
well, the old ones, they like had a hammer. You would like hammer them, and they had a primer in the base of them. It would fire the nail in before they had like compressed air hooked up to them. But I think just kind of riffing off what you're talking about, specifically Jay Stark and our freedom-loving friends over in the EU. It's like here in the US, there's so many fucking guns. It's like arming ourselves isn't the problem in this state. Our problem here is surveillance and censorship and financial freedom. Like that's the problem here. Although we have the dog, like we're in the best spot of anyone else on earth. But that's kind of like the fight we're fighting, because guns and ammo are plentiful here. It's probably really, really insane just how much is actually out there here in the U.S. Now, friends over there, they're also wrecked, but in that sense, but they're also wrecked on, like you said, the regulation aspect of firearms and ammunition. But to my point earlier about these incremental improvements benefiting everyone, I think that early in 2020, one of the big advancements, maybe it was 2 years ago, maybe 2019, back when Hong Kong was rising. A scientist, one of the guys in the community, he was from Hong Kong. He was working on smokeless powder. And I think that he eventually found the recipe and like open source that shit. So like primers, the problem will be solved. They will figure it out. Like there will be a chemist who finds this community and loves guns and loves freedom technology. And that shit will be made public. It will be open sourced. And I'm very confident in that. So like every other problem that has risen, like the community has circumvented it and risen to the occasion. And the haters keep having to move the goalpost. And, you know, the 3D printing freedom technology movement they just keep killing it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And they're working on all sorts of cool solutions to it outside of, like, I feel like just focusing on the idea of like striker fired ammunition and firearms in general is really limiting what's happening here, because they're working on electric fired ammunition, and that changes the game a lot. Because I was talking with Suckboy about it. If you have a gun that uses a trigger that you can attach to a microcontroller, which then fires the bullet, attaches something else and fires the bullet, you can probably dramatically increase accuracy, because you're not having to deal with a long trigger pull to fire the hammer in the same way, which is kind of an interesting concept. I think like the firearm industry has been lacking innovation in so many ways for so long. And that's something that's changing as a result of this open sourcing of all these things. I mean, the idea of open source.
Yeah, they've just had this they've had this seniorage position where they didn't have to innovate, and then free and open source comes along and just fucking wrecks their worldview.
Yeah. Finding that out kind of wrecked my worldview, because I like Smith & Wesson. I like some of these companies.
Yeah, and also another thing that's interesting what Separate Tony's working on is, I think that gun it's technically like a muzzle loader, so it has even more, I guess, freedom aspects to it. Like the state has silly rules in place, and the things that are being built and developed can just totally warp what the state even can comprehend as what a firearm is today. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories of this year so far was the guy that turned his little Nerf gun into a 3D printed firearm. And it was about as worthless as like the Liberator was, but it definitely got the attention of the ATF and, you know, some of the other 3-letter agencies. And that got me really excited, because, I mean, could you imagine if they went and regulated Nerf guns, like what the general population would think of that? And then, you know, Nerf has a lot of money. They're a big company, and would probably fight back against it. And so there's all these ways you can just run circles around the state and totally screw them up. And I thought that was, you know, a perfect example of doing that.
Yep.
That was so funny. I was at a event.
It was a good looking gun.
Yeah. No. I mean, I don't know about that, but yeah, I was at a event at the time in honor of Ross Ulbricht, hanging out with Lynn, and I saw that on Zero Hedge, and it made my day. It was
hell yeah,
an amazing night. So yeah. Well, speaking of tyranny in the European countries, I guess the UK is throwing around. Australia's been talking about this. I want to get a little bit conspiracy theory with this one. So they're throwing around this idea of handing out prison sentences to people over social media posts that are deemed harmful. So if somebody gets upset with your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter post, then they could potentially sue you. Sounds like that's
you're seeing that happen in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, something surfaced on Twitter 2 weeks ago, and is cops questioning a man about a post that he made online, and they were questioning if he was at a protest because he made a a post about the protests. It's probably just going to get worse until enough people get fucking pissed off.
Yeah, it's really scary. Julia Terinsky dropped off of social media a while back, and I wonder if that was a good decision on her part. And I've definitely...
I don't know who that is.
Brave the World. Julia Brave the World.
Okay.
Yeah. She's pretty cool. She was one of the co-authors of Guns and Bitcoin, and she's done some various cool projects. But
it's like she spoke this year.
Yeah, she spoke at the Bear Arms and Bitcoin. But yeah, okay. You ready for my conspiracy theory?
Yeah, late on me. I'll probably agree with it.
Okay, so I had Jack Kruse on my podcast, and one of the things he was talking about was how the British royal family likes to play things behind the scenes a lot and has a lot more control over the world than we like to think. And as being one of those old, wealthy families sitting in this historical seat of power. And what comes to mind is like you're seeing these crazy laws around social media and censorship come from these countries that are somehow attached or affiliated to the British royal family, like Australia, Canada, and the UK. And so I wonder if there's a theme there, because we're not really seeing those laws outside of countries like that. What do you think?
Okay, I was anticipating something worse than that conspiracy theory. I was anticipating you to say something like Sailor's bloodline goes back to the British Royals or something crazy like that. Okay, so it seems plausible. Yeah, I feel like those countries probably still bend the knee. Don't they have the Queen on their fucking money still? I mean, I don't know if every Canadian note has it, but I feel like Australia does. I might be wrong there too, but I don't think that's too hard to believe at all. That sounds perfectly plausible, and they're just satellites of the royal family. That seems like something I could totally get behind. Yeah. Any other evidence or just total speculation?
No, I haven't done any research on this. I don't really understand the relationship of the royal family to these countries other than they get a shit ton of money from them. Yeah, I'm just thinking through like how it would happen and flow. I mean, like, if you are of the mindset that there is some kind of like new world order or some kind of one world government controlling things and calling shots, then like, why would you not also suppose that one organization would control those three countries? Like, that seems perfectly reasonable. And I am of the mindset that there is some kind of like shadow state governing things. So whatever you just put out there, I'm totally a buyer of. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing like Matt and Marty like to talk about FATFA a lot, and so do the guys at Simply Bitcoin. And we're starting to see this kind of come across the board. Like, you have organizations like the World Economic Forum, you've got things like the World Health Organization, you've got the UN pushing these things that then, you know, other countries are trying to support and fall behind. And I think there's this attempt to trend towards that. But then you have countries like El Salvador and Poland and, you know, other countries that are really difficult to rein in and doing their own thing. So, but yeah, I think there is an attempt to this, and it's kind of crazy and scary.
Yeah, consolidation of power. I mean, I don't know, the whole World Economic Forum thing, just, it's too easy to like hate on them. Like, they're probably not even the ones. Like, Klaus Schwab probably isn't. He's just a puppet. But someone's calling shots because there's too much coordination happening across the world governments. So like, there's not that level of coordination without someone calling those shots. And we'll probably never know who it is. So we just got to do what we can, like you said earlier, just to be sovereign.
Yeah. So Zorn says here in Canada, the governor general is appointed by the Queen, and the office overrides all laws. So that's pretty interesting. And I know the Queen has some power in the UK in regards to the Prime Minister.
Okay, I like the next question from Don.
Australia. Okay, I'll get to that in a sec. So Australia Prime Minister just fucked over the French government by giving UK $80 billion submarine contract. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. EU versus Russia versus China versus UK, US, Canada, Australia. Which one backs Bitcoin?
What do you think?
Well, so I lived in Ukraine for a while as a kid, and so I follow Ukrainian news a lot. It's exciting to see what's happening there with Bitcoin, but pretty much what's happened is...
Bro, we're hiring for a Bitcoin magazine in Ukraine. You should go over there for a year.
That would be cool, but I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian. I used to be fluent as a kid, and I lost it all because I moved to the U.S. when I was really young. But so what I think ultimately is like, okay, if we're gonna look at those countries, I would say probably Russia, ideally, but like all of those countries listed have like a strong incentive not to, whereas Ukraine, El Salvador, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, a lot of these, Poland, ex-Soviet countries, countries that have been in the middle of all of these, giant superpowers, like fucking them over and, playing these stupid games and cutting them off at the legs economically for forever, I think are going to be the countries that adopt Bitcoin. And so I think there'll almost be this other, you've seen like Iran and Venezuela kind of team up to work around sanctions together, and they're not geographically positioned well, but I think we're going to see something similar in happen. So I wouldn't say any of those countries. That's my take on it. I think we're going to see smaller.
That is a weak ass answer.
Well, what's your
Wait, you said any? Did you say any of those countries?
European Union, Russia, China, UK, US, Canada, Australia.
And you said Russia.
I would say out of those, probably Russia, but I don't see any of these countries leading the way.
Oh, okay. I don't see any. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have just started yelling at you like that.
I forgive you.
I like to take on Russia. That probably makes the most sense. I also, again, feeling like a homer here, but like the U.S. would be the one. Like eventually there will be a groundswell. Bitcoiners will hold so much political sway that we will be able to lobby powerfully, and we will have Bitcoiners sitting in the Senate and Congress, and eventually we'll have a Bitcoiner who's president or a president who holds it. And I don't think it's like, I think that will happen a lot quicker than anyone could possibly think. So the powers that be don't want it to happen, but politicians want to hold seats. And, when they find out that they can tap into the laser-eyed autist power and political backing, we'll probably see more laser eyes in Congress. So I'm just hopeful. I truly believe that it will be the Bitcoin versus communism. I think I like to believe that, Americans are not defined by the state, and that we do have enough freedom-loving people in this country, and that will be the ultimate fight. Will be the freedom technology of the West, powered by Bitcoin, versus AI communist regime of the Far East led by China. That's how I think it eventually plays out, and it will probably happen a lot faster than we anticipate.
Zorn wants you to yell at me more. Zorn says it's funnier that way.
Okay. Don't slip up. Or false slip up because you didn't slip up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm a little bit too black-pilled on the U.S. government to have that take. I think, like, I mean, drugs are still illegal across the board, and that's been catastrophic. Just absolutely insane. And I just feel like these power structures are too entrenched. I could see like I think the Bitcoiners in Congress are going to operate similarly like the Tea Party did. And they're going to be, minority, and they might be able to obstruct a little bit. But yeah.
You're underestimating NGU technology.
I mean, maybe I don't think it matters though, because the people in power, they have control of all the assets. Like, and I don't think they give a shit if the currency goes under, and like most people think that the problem today is just like the wrong person's in power, rather than there's like some fundamental issues with, the government, period. Like that. I mean, the way I see it is like this attempt at a constitutional republic has dramatically failed, and the state is ultimately the problem. And so I just I struggle to see.
I would say Bitcoin fixes this.
I mean, I agree with that. I don't think that I do think that the war is going to be communist against freedom, and I agree with you on that. I just don't think the U.S. government is going to be a friendly ally in that in any way. Like
yeah, you're probably right, and I say a lot. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
But like, Honey Badger don't care, and all opponents will bend the knee to Bitcoin. Then I think that includes the U.S. government, and the sooner we get on board, the sooner we can like prosper. But yeah, like I have a healthy, skepticism that the state, and by the time that it's embraced, maybe we have, balkanization happening, and maybe it's smaller states embracing Bitcoin. Who knows what the world's going to look like in 10 years?
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting conversation. Probably the stance I would take more is it's not like what the U.S. government's take on it is, because I think Bitcoin will end the U.S. government, and it'll end it quicker than a lot of us expect it to. I mean, I just think they're failing. It's like
they're just not ending, like upholding their part of the social contract. They're just completely failing, and they're making life worse. And they're just fucking us every way possible. So I'm with you. People will wise up, and they will take their money and their body and their person and their families elsewhere to more friendly jurisdictions.
Yeah. So I think like an interesting conversation, on this one is like looking more at like the local state governments of like, are they going to be the ones that, are more friendlier to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners? Like, I think it's really interesting, the idea of like, trying to get Bitcoiners into your state government to like support mining, and because I think mining ultimately is going to speed up the balkanization quite a bit as these different jurisdictions become economically independent from the Federal Reserve and the federal government. And I think that's interesting. But yeah, I struggle to see, the U.S. They just want to.
Okay, hold on. I love where this is going.
Yeah.
The first question is at the like state level. Now, what about, can you say, is it legal, and can a individual united state, like one of the states, hold Bitcoin on a state balance sheet, like in state treasury? I don't know if that's legal, but that's interesting. Could you see that happening?
Oh, I totally could see that happening. I think it's going to happen in the next year and a half, if not sooner.
That's fucking bullish, man. Like that's insane. That's insane. And then you're going to see the neighboring states be like, yo, what the fuck are we missing out on here? It's kind of like casinos, like you see all the revenue going over state lines, and like roads and fucking schools getting built from casino revenue. That shit's just going to happen for Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah, I mean, like imagine, like if you look at all the pensions, the entire pension system is just completely fucked. And imagine if they just started taking all that money and buying ASICs, and now that was funding their pensions.
That's an insane idea, dude. I like that.
What's an insane idea is like continuing forward on the path that we're all going. Like that's
For sure.
The sane
That's
idea.
the insane.
Yeah. That's the sane thing to do is go get a bunch of ASICs to fund your pensions.
Oh my God. I want you to write that. That's a good article. Someone probably already wrote that.
Yeah.
There's too many good writings.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a theory that I have because I mean, these states, like, it's just the polarization is going to continue to swing in more crazy directions. So, like, you know, we're looking at midterm elections. It's probably going to be a sweep to the right. You know, there's no way, like, I had this theory that both parties were trying to purposefully throw the last election. And that's why the Democrats put Biden up and why Trump acted like such a maniac while campaigning, because they knew that they were getting a shitstorm going forward. They just didn't want to be in control of it. But it kind of freaks me out, the idea of like Republicans getting into power and seeing how that could potentially sweep really far right in regards to this, and kind of a
like nationalist, like fascist type things, or what do you mean?
Well, I mean, when you look at the Republicans, they're not any more. I don't think they're any better. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like the big thing that Trump had going on was like trying to counter China, you know, and purposefully antagonizing them as much as possible, and then also like, you know, for anybody out there that thinks that Trump was any better than Biden on economics, he wasn't. Like, he was trying to push the Fed to negative interest rates, and doing all these stupid things that are incredibly destructive, like with tariffs and stuff like that. Go read Economics in One Lesson and you'll hate Trump. Yeah, I mean, it just, the deep state, like, I mean, you just like look at these things, like, I guess I don't have a great answer for what could potentially happen. But you see things like, what the mayor's Francis Suarez in Miami was calling for military intervention in Cuba, which is, you know, kind of crazy. It's like, okay, great, we'll just get ourselves into another, you know, Somalia or Afghanistan, you know, but more close to, like, I just don't think it gets better. And yeah, but what's interesting about like that thought is like, what would the leftist, the commie states do in a situation like that? Like, I don't think California is going to go out and buy a bunch of Bitcoin miners to try and become independent from the federal government in a stance like that. So, yeah.
No, that would be boiling oceans. They would never do that.
But yeah, the balkanization's happening before our eyes. We're in the midst of it, and I think it's interesting to think of like, how do we position ourselves for that? And maybe like Matt and Marty were talking about like creating a Bitcoin version of Coin Center, and I think that's a kind of a wasted resources. Like, I think directing anything at the federal government is just, you know, kind of a waste of time versus just trying to encourage their delegitimacy as much as possible is a great use of resources.
Yeah, I think that the good news, like, I think that's a fair opinion, and also that there's so many Bitcoiners out there that it's okay if they have, you know, it can be a valiant effort to try that. Like, props off, you know, hats off to whoever goes and like makes that the hill that they're going to fight on. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. Like, you know, fuck the state, make more people understand how illegitimate it is. But the Bitcoiners who go make that their fight, like, I will support them.
Yeah.
Even though it can seem senseless. I feel like that would be one of those, like, this is good for Bitcoin. Whereas your take, I would also say this is good for Bitcoin, unfortunately. You know, like, all things are good for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both are good. Both are good and necessary.
For people fighting for freedom, I won't ever try and cut them down. But I, may not agree with their methods.
Yeah, and you can think it's naive, and it very well might be. But I mean, like, if they're able to touch a couple staffers or lobbyists or even policymakers and help control the demolition in favor of Bitcoiners, or make the state drag its feet a bit more so that we can get more entrenched, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I like that perspective. You're creating cells, sleeper cells within the federal government to obstruct and lead to.
Yeah, that's the fifth column. I mean, that's Marty talks about that a lot. That's kind of like the cell within the state. That is, our army of Ron Swansons.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I think like I want to see the state go away entirely, and I think trying to support local jurisdictions gaining power as much as possible to kind of shift this imbalance of power away from the federal government into the local jurisdictions is a step, and then you can start trying to eliminate the local jurisdictions. But yeah, so Zorn says
that's exciting. Go ahead with what did Zorn say?
Zorn says $5 that a state like North Dakota adopts state Bitcoin mines first because they're out of the way in the middle of nowhere and no one's paying attention. Yeah, I think it's going to be like Wyoming, and honestly, Texas is looking like they're very favorable towards Bitcoin mining. Probably won't be state run.
That governor of North Dakota, she's pretty fucking based, it sounds like. Of course, I don't follow all of her politics, but the sound bites I've seen, she's looks pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, Kristi Noem. I'm not sure if it's North Dakota or South Dakota. It might be South Dakota, but
that's right.
But yeah, Zorn's right that North Dakota is out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say before I cut you off?
I can't remember. I think I'm bullish on the the local jurisdictions, putting it on their balance sheets, collecting taxes for it, maybe finding ways to create that circular economy with Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see new markets emerge. We're going to see new products and services emerge that we could never dream today. And that's exciting stuff. What is to be built, because it's happening so quickly, and adoption is just going to continue to rapidly grow. I mean, Bitcoin's growing faster than the fucking internet when it was the same age. It's pretty insane, and it gets to ride the coattails of the internet. So it's going to just continue to propel and be built into services and products, and extremely bullish on the future.
Yes. It's a time to be bullish. We need to get excited. These mania, like, I think one of the biggest battles right now is ultimately not allowing them to demoralize us. And staying bullish is important. Meeting up with people in person is important. Not getting sad and sucking it into Facebook meta, and just drowning away.
Dude, you're not alone. Nothing like meeting another Bitcoiner in person for the first time. It's like, oh, fuck, man. These people on Twitter are real. Like, I'm not fucking crazy. That's a real experience is to know that you're not alone.
Yeah. We have an army and we're winning this. Well, cool. We're coming up on 2 hours. Probably should start wrapping up. Let's see. I don't know if I got any shout outs. We got Samurai coming out in November. Oh, it is November. In a couple weeks up to Phoenix to do a presentation on Bitcoin privacy. I'm not taking a side, Samurai versus Wasabi. I have to say that, but I think Bitcoin privacy is good. Boba Dread says wrapping up saying ain't Joe. Zorn says he loves you. Great guest. Do it again. I'm trying to think of any other announcements. I got to figure out what we're doing in November.
Have you seen the new dojo, the new Ronin Dojo's nodes?
Yeah.
Pretty sexy little boxes.
Yeah, they're built on Rock Pies, not Raspberry Pis, right?
Yeah, Rock Pros.
Rock Pros.
Yeah, the Ronin supports Raspberry Pi and Rock Pro, but Rock Pro is the preferred platform, single board computer. I think it just has a little bit different architecture that seems to be a bit more stable than Raspberry Pi. But the new nodes coming out soon. I'm not. This is not a paid endorsement, but they look fucking sick. And I think they just rolled out an update. So go check for software update if you're running a dojo out there, a Ronin dojo.
Nice. Did they support Lightning? I know they're super anti-Lightning.
I don't think that they're anti-Lightning. I think they're just focused on on-chain privacy at this time. And I don't think it's off the table for the future. It's just currently the fight that they're fighting is L1 privacy.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On-chain's great right now with the mempool being so empty.
Scary.
It's scary how empty it is.
Yeah.
Or maybe this is the way it always should have been. Maybe there was a bunch of or like spam transactions from miners in China.
I know, but what the fuck were they doing? I just don't get it. Just trying to prop up fees overall.
Yeah. Maybe that's a wild conspiracy theory.
I'd like to read more on that one. That's interesting because I mean, essentially the mempool died after China, but now here we are, the hash rate's back where it was. Was there just that many fucking transactions happening in mainland? Like, seems hard to believe, but I like that conspiracy theory. Yeah. Wash trading, because they own the pool, so just jack price. Yeah, possibility. That's a lot of fucking coordination, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. They're pretty
I know
smart.
that seems like such a Chinese thing to do.
Yeah,
stereotype.
Man, I feel like I had a few things to say. You got anything to shill for Bitcoin Magazine?
Magazine's dropping. That's my full-time gig right now, is working on this physical magazine. This magazine, it's going to be on newsstands probably end of November. So it's currently being printed by some friends up in Canada. I found a really dope printer up there. Our lead designer's up there. So she found a printer that's local that she can go actually talk to and have a relationship with. And anyway, the actual magazine itself, it's really beautiful. It's like 145 pages, really high quality paper. I think it's really fairly priced, like $14. So I'm real passionate about it. I work with Citadel 21. I love magazines. I think holding a magazine, reading articles, Bitcoin art, like all of these things are really important to us because Bitcoin is intangible. So these kind of artifacts just they hold superpowers. They're just kind of like, we're manifesting like our digital world into the physical realm. And it's like we're casting spells out to the universe, and you can leave a Bitcoin magazine in the lobby of the Fed, and that would be fucking awesome and epic. So that's what I'm chilling. That's what I'm working on. Real excited. We're already started working on the next issue, and it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna be rolling them out like once a quarter, and then maybe one or two special editions throughout the year. So check it out if you're interested. BitcoinMagazine.com.
That's dope.
That's all I got.
I'm stoked for that. Does it come in?
You're gonna want a copy. It's gonna be cool.
Does it come in a black baggie?
So we are going to do for the first round of subscriptions for this first issue. It is going to come in like special packaging. I think we're putting together a cool sticker pack that's going to go with them. I think we're working on a poster board for like the first 1,000 subs, and I think we're trending that we're going to hit that like any day now. So subs are cranking out there. It's going really well. But yeah, this first run is going to have a little bit extra love for people supporting us.
Nice.
I know our European friends love plastic bags. I don't know what the deal is with that. That's a thing. So I think that we are working on something like that. But Also, a little alpha is that our international friends, I think we're rolling out international payments later on this week. So to be determined, but it's coming. We're actively working on it. There's just a lot of bullshit on the back end with like Shopify and OpenNode because we want people to be able to make payments via Bitcoin, of course. So stay tuned. It's coming and you will be able to smash that buy button.
Nice. Have you guys ever looked at doing like Lightning paywalls for premium content on the website?
We have, and definitely that's something we're fascinated by. So bitcoinmagazine.com, just the regular website, I think that it will probably always be kind of a free website that would be ad-based. I think what you're going to see from us as a company is more like sponsored content. I think we're going to be getting more into higher quality video and audio. Right now we have a lot of different pods, but I think that what you're going to see from us, we're going to double down on video, and you're going to see some high quality stuff that's probably sponsored by like mainstream type companies. That's kind of the vision. Like we've got to break out of just focusing on like Bitcoin companies. Like if we're going to tap the normies, we need the normie marketing dollars too, because Bitcoiner is going to have a big, from a marketing standpoint, big market spend here in the near future. So that's somewhere that we're going to double down on. But paywall specifically, we also have a paid product called the Deep Dive. My friend Dylan LeClaire, young Dylan, he's like this crazy savant kid that writes a macro newsletter daily. So we are looking at maybe some of the reports that he does to just like paywall those with sats. So because right now the subscriptions are pretty spendy. It's like $50 a month. And that is a lot of money for like an average pleb. But when you're looking at institutional and investors and family office managers, $50 is a drop in the bucket. So kind of going after that market. But we are considering doing some kind of paywalls specifically with that product because I think it's a nice product market fit. But to be determined. I think .com probably will stay free, no promises. But probably we'll look at some kind of paywall solution for report type content from like Deep Dive.
Nice.
Long answer. Sorry.
No, that's just something I'm really interested in is like, I think it'd be super dope to set up like a 10-cent Lightning paywall per article.
If you want experience playing with that shit, I don't know how technical you are if you've got a Lightning node. But the one that I would recommend checking out is lnpay.co.
Mm-hmm.
LNPay is a custodial paywall solution. But kind of like my first Bitcoin project it was called Bitcoin Words. And it was a monthly journal of like Bitcoin articles that I came across. And I was putting them in a monthly, like a PDF package, and people could make a donation and it would paywall. It would open up a PDF that you could download. Otherwise it would just be free to read on the website. But if you want to see that, like this was literally the product that was my aha moment for Bitcoin Network. Like I was buying Bitcoin on exchange and like finally pulled it off. I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm sending it back and forth. This is cool. But whenever I created a paywall for a URL that I wanted, and I could just like send this URL to LNPay to anyone in the world, and it would present a QR code and they could scan it with their Lightning wallet. And then immediately that web page opens up to the final destination. That was like the magic moment for me. I was like, holy fuck, this is instant. This is awesome. So check that. That would be a recommended. A little shill for my buddy Tim is lnpay.co.
That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at it with BTC Pay Server. I know you could somehow set something up with that. So I'm like very intermediate when it comes to technology. So I like bang my head against the wall, but I can eventually accomplish it. But
the fact you've got Restream working is like, pretty impressive. So you're doing pretty good.
I don't know. That stuff's easier for me than some of the other stuff. But yeah, I forgot to shill the show sponsors. So we've got like a list of fake sponsors. So first and foremost, this episode was presented by Dennis Porter. Not funny.
Oh, I thought there was going to be a byline, like you know, more to it. That was I think you missed opportunity there to really slay it.
Well, yeah. So this podcast
this podcast was recorded by Dennis Porter, and this was brought to you by Dennis Porter, and you should subscribe to DennisPorter.com.
Yeah. So this episode was presented by Dennis Porter. He sponsors us by sending us some screenshots of British Hodl's Glassnode account. So we got
the market's relentless right now, man. Hats off to Dennis Porter fighting the good fight, man. Keep it up.
What a guy. It's also sponsored by Dirtbags Bar, which is the best place to find your future ex-wife in Tucson, Arizona.
What are they most known for?
I don't know, just being a shitty bar right by the university.
Like the best burgers in town, the coldest beer, the loosest women. Like, what is it about them?
Well,
because I can't wait to go there and do live stream with you guys.
Dirtbags is about going and finding your future ex-wife. So somebody that you'll go through an awful divorce through. It'll be expensive. There'll be lots of lawyers involved. You'll be scarred for the rest of your life. That's the draw to Dirtbags. But
when you approached them about the sponsorship, did they actually approach you guys? How did that go down?
Oh, we're not actually sponsored by them. We're trying to will it into existence.
Cut that part out. Cut that part out of this live stream. You're supposed to say, yeah, they approached us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they were like, hey.
Okay. Are they gonna let you guys live stream from there? When is that gonna happen? Because I want to hear the ambient noise of the cheers in the background. I want to hear the women yelling. Like when live stream from Dirtbags?
That's a good question. I don't know what it would take to do that from a technology standpoint, but
you need like noise canceling mic and good headphones and like a Wi-Fi signal in your computer.
Okay. Yeah, we could.
I just made the list.
Okay. So mics are the problem right now because these mics pick up everything. So,
yeah.
But I could probably get my hands on something like that.
Okay, just promise me this: when the live stream happens, I want to come be a part of that.
The chat's lighting up. That would be a lot of fun to have you out there. So, but that's something I'm really interested in doing is live shows. I want to move into that because I think that's going to be something really important as travel restrictions grow a little bit more strict.
Yeah.
So Bobo Dread says,
hold on. You did not promise the thing I was asking. Is it not? Are you not willing to promise me that I can be there for I'm not asking for the first live stream, just the first live stream from Dirtbags. That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
If you could just like save that one for me.
Yeah. I promise. I'll save that one for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll accept that.
Yeah. So Dread says it's not a divorce, but actually the lawyer bills you collected along the way. Don says, Restream sucks. Don says the reason I seek out KYC free coin is so that I can hide it from my future ex-wife.
Not a bad idea.
Lurk's flying out for the live stream. Need to find my.
That's
future.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We got to sell tickets to this thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'd want it to be free.
No. Dennis could sell us ticket. He could sell tickets for us.
Yeah. Included with the ticket comes some great trading tips from British Hodl.
It's a group package.
Oh, okay. Don's dropping a bomb right at the end of the stream. Gosh darn it. Did you guys?
No, that's fucking JW Weatherman bullshit.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah. I don't know. I all of this stuff, all these different battles back and forth, Samurai, Wasabi, Cold Card, these guys, Jay Weatherman told Don this. So did you guys hear about the cold cards and CCP control? Apparently you have to keep your cold card in a ribbed condom so the CCP can't access it. Oh, that's funny as shit.
That motherfucker loves a good fight.
JW.
Yeah, he just like picks battles that are just like senseless. But
Skeef.
look, I know that Skeef likes his product. He's told me he thinks it's cool. I haven't tried it, and I should try it. I think he made a good point though. Like, don't knock it till you rock it. So it sounds dope, but I don't think shitting on hardware wallets is really doing anyone a favor. But whatever.
Yeah.
It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. The infighting will be there, and I think it's a feature, not a bug. I think we have to have this attitude of preventing hero worship in the space, and for people to be accountable. And you're gonna have crazy wackos say awful, wild things about different groups, but it's part of that. So yeah,
we signed up for this.
Young Lurk says, I keep mine in the Alaskan pipeline in my fridge. Flame wars of hardware wallets. Yes, exactly. Okay, I remembered the last couple announcements before we close. We're gonna be having a Christmas party in Orange County. I think it's December 9th that I'm pretty stoked for. We're trying to, we've been coordinating the entire Southwest, so mostly Arizona and Orange County. Vegas is kind of wrapped in there, but I'm not really sure how they're wrapped in there. But specifically between mostly the Anaheim crew and Phoenix and Tucson, we've been coordinating to try and create this regional network of Bitcoin meetups. So we're going to be having a Christmas party, trying to get everybody together on December 9th, and I'm pretty stoked for that. So that was my last announcement.
That's cool, man. That's good people in the network. And I think that as an observer, it's pretty cool to see what you guys are building out there in the West. So hopefully other parts of the country can replicate the good work that's being done out there.
Oh, it's happening. There's some cool stuff going on in Ohio that I heard about on here a couple weeks ago. And
yeah, my boy Max is insane.
Yeah. What a guy. I try to work pretty hard on the meetup scene, but it's pretty easy to feel bad when you got guys like Max and Brian Harrington out there doing all this crazy shit.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up, man.
We'll get there. The remnants out there, we will find them, or they will find us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all I got. Big thanks to Joe coming on, and chat.
It was my pleasure to fill Skeef's little shoes.
He does have little feet.
Me too. So fuck it.
He doesn't wear shoes.
His little chacos, I should have said.
Lurky can reach out to me anytime.
Hey, last thing, go out there and get yourself a PK Grill. Check out my ref link below.
PK Grill. All right. Thanks, chat. And